Um, the chief guest, Professor Ramakrishna Ramaswamy, to come on the stage. Professor Amitabh Dasgupta, Professor Tutun Mukherjee, Dr. J. Bheemaiah, A.S. Dasan, Ms. P. Sivakami, and M. Dasan. Now I would like to request Professor Now I would like to welcome Professor Tutun Mukherjee to give away the welcome address.
Good morning, Professor Ramakrishna Ramaswamy, Vice Chancellor, University of Hyderabad, Professor Amitabh Dasgupta, Dean, University of Hyderabad, the convener of the seminar workshop, Dr. Bheemaiah, other distinguished guests who have taken time off to attend here on the days, other distinguished guests in the audience, colleagues, students. It's a great pleasure to inaugurate this seminar cum workshop. This is the 5th in the series. So CCL, Center for Comparative Literature, is very pleased to hold this seminar and congratulate Dr. Bheemaiah for his diligent pursuit of this kind of production of knowledge, to be able to hold successfully the 5th of such a seminar, which is going to be on Dalit writing and subaltern writing as counter writing. Dr. Bheemaiah has also been able to publish a book from the proceedings of some of the other seminars, and he has informed us that he's working on the other papers also of the earlier seminars. So I wish all of you to have a very fruitful time here on this occasion, which is on counter writing, Dalit and subaltern writers get together, and I'm sure you're going to have a very rich time together, and a fruitful kind of proceedings will emerge from this. So again, on behalf of Center for Comparative Literature and University of Hyderabad, a warm welcome to all the delegates and participants here. Thank you.
Mike, as well as the proceedings. Actually, I am very pleased that we are having this this conference over here, and in the fact that it is one of a series is extremely important to us. Maybe it's easy to ask Professor Bheemaiah to explain to discuss the rationale for this. I mean, I see from the program that the workshop's rationale is to be explained by Professor Bheemaiah, and I would have thought that there is no need to explain the rationale for such a meeting. I think it's a very important subject. It is something that we have pursued over the years with several meetings and conferences. And in particular, Professor Bheemaiah has been, as Professor Mukherjee just pointed out, leading this discussion for several years now. And the books that are coming out of it are testimony itself. I quickly looked through the program, because that's all actually I'm able to do anymore, is to quickly look through a program before I rush off to something else. But I'm really very pleased that he has managed to put together such a galaxy of writers, of speakers, who are also themselves important authors and who have been important critics and voices for counter writing, or the marginal writing, or subaltern, call it what you will. I think a university like University of Hyderabad is very important in this respect, that it can play this very crucial role in giving voice to the counter voices, and to also bring very critical scholarship in this area. We have done this over the years, and done this relentlessly, I would say, from the in this department. I know in English we have done this. We have done this in women's studies. We have done this in a variety of different departments. A testimony to the fact that the University of Hyderabad does in fact see itself as a place of scholarship in this area, among others. I hope that we will continue to do this in the coming years, and I hope that the results of our scholarship, in particular the books that we bring out, will be important catalogues of such work, and that we will be able to make a difference in the overall landscape. So let me congratulate the Center for Comparative Literature and Professor Bheemaiah in particular for conceptualizing such a meeting and bringing it together, and putting together such a lot of important people in this effort. Okay, now since I took over the mic and the proceedings, I've said what I need to say, but now I'd like Dr. Bheemaiah to briefly tell us the rationale for this workshop. Bheemaiah?
Good morning, all of you. I welcome all of you to the two-day national seminar cum workshop at Center for Comparative Literature. I am really happy that Professor Ramakrishna Ramaswamy, Vice Chancellor of this university, has kindly consented to come and has materialized also. Professor Das Gupta, Dean School of Humanities, Professor Tutu Mukherjee, Head Center for Comparative Literature, Professor A.S. Dasan, Director, Shirkodaya MHDS Director, Mysore, Professor M. Dasan from Kanni University, and other friends, media friends, student scholars. This is my 5th seminar, cum workshop. Earlier I organized 4 national seminars which focused on various themes of subalterns, particularly Dalits, and later the previous seminar was on tribal subalternity. This time I included not only Dalits and all subalterns in a larger sense. Some friends asked me, why only counter writing, why not alternative or parallel writing? Yes, very genuine clarification and doubt also. To me, counter writing is appropriate. Given the gravity of the situation, being prevalent, not just present, even in the past we saw the grimness of the situation of the subalterns. Subalterns include many number of people in the world. Actually, it takes a larger sense. Subalternity, it's not just, we cannot confine it to some caste or some kind of region or some language or whatever. But though we use subalternity, it's very difficult to do justice to the term itself. Subaltern writing may be very close to counter-rating. Counter-rating has its effect because mostly Dalits and other subalterns who include women, tribals, minorities, transgenders, many other people from different sections of society. And I would like to emphasize the concept of subalternity has not been there just for last few days. It has been there from the time immemorial also. In the medieval period, we can see that force in a very, very mild form. There was some kind of protest. Protest was lodged in a different way. The protest takes and assumes a different form with the passage of time. So counter-rating includes writing by many other subaltern groups who quest for identity, a kind of their presence in the world, which can be located completely opposite to the dominant. As we know, there are the dominant, there are the dominated. So the dominated try to actually rise up with their powerful voice and try to actually reach the center. It is possible, of course, but it takes a lot of time. Counter-rating challenges the mainstream writing, which we can see counter-rating as antithesis to the mainstream writing. And today there is a prevalence of that kind of writing not only by Dalits, by all different fragmented groups. Each fragmented group actually yearns for social identity and political identity, even cultural identity. So I would like to actually put all these different fragments into one to bring on the one platform for a discussion. That's why I have actually taken this name. And one more thing is that counter-writing, I actually would briefly mean further. When Ambedkar actually was trying to focus the issues of Dalits, he wanted to actually publish their issues, but no publisher came forward to publish the issues of Dalits in those days. In this backdrop, he founded Moknayak, a literary organ, in order to emphasize and focus more and more on the oppressed and underprivileged. It was done with force. So it takes not only just a parallel kind of writing to the mainstream, it has its own force to resist what is actually exerted on the dominated. In the same way, say we can see the concept which is embedded in Ambedkar's writings and Phule's writings, and we can have see that kind of concept in philosophy of these intellectuals. When Mulkrajan wanted to publish his first novel, Untouchable, in 1935, and no publisher actually came forward to publish. The same thing he faced. Why? It is because the content was about the underprivileged. That was the drawback. So he tried for publication, but no publisher came forward to take it forward. It is one who, E.M. Foster is one who came to rescue by writing foreword to Untouchable. Then only it was actually qualified for publication. See, it happened not only in the history, it has been happening even today. So in order to actually counter this kind of indifference by the dominant in society, and which actually warranted, even pressurized the oppressed groups to write in their own fashion, to bring out their own aesthetics actually, in order to express their emotions and feelings in a very, very, very aggressive manner, of course. Aggressive manner, I say that it is, we can actually, put this aggressiveness to their operation. Otherwise, it's not possible. So it is like actually a ball which rebubs. The more we actually hit the ball, the more it comes back. So we can liken this kind of action to the subaltern writing and more of this counter writing. So this all, I hope that discussions will happen on this counter writing in a very deliberate manner. We will share different views by different intellectuals, and in 2 days, including today. And I would like to conclude saying that counter writing is a very appropriate term that I have chosen given the present circumstances, and also keeping in view the circumstances actually prevalent in the past also. And hopefully, and the discussions will be very, very successful. Once again, I thank all the dignitaries on the stage and the dais. And I thank you, sir, Professor Ramaswamy Garu. I thank you very much. And despite your busy schedule, you could come. Very, very thankful to you. And all of Professor Dasan, Professor M. Dasan, Professor A.S. Dasan, our dean, beloved dean, also really they have they taken some time for me. Thank you, and thank you very much, sir.
Request Professor Amitabh Das Gupta, the Dean of School of Humanities, to give memento to Professor Ramakrishna Ramaswamy, the Vice Chancellor of University of Hyderabad.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Bheemaiah, and I accept it on behalf of the university, of course. I wanted to actually add a word. I mean, apart from saying that I have to leave because of my busy schedule, of which you have already been alerted to, I actually do have an unfortunately busy schedule today. But I was sort of a little smart in the sense that anticipating that I would like to hear some of the talks that were given at this particular meeting, I requested Professor Bheemaiah to ensure that the entire proceedings were taped, which is why you have that camera in front of you. That was by my request, and I want to particularly thank Dr. Bheemaiah that you ensured that this would be taped. As a consequence, therefore, of course, we will not only tape it, but we'll be putting up your talks on YouTube. So to make sure that we reach a much wider audience than just what's available in this room. Thank you, Dr. Bheemaiah, and thank you all. I hope you all have a wonderful conference. And now I'd like to request Tutun to please take over and conduct the rest of the proceedings of the morning. Yeah.
Now I Center for Comparative Literature to give away the mementos to Professor Amitabh Das Gupta, the Dean of School of Humanities. Dr. J. Bheemaiah. He is the son. Miss P. Sivakami. In the sun. Now I would like to request Professor Amitabh Das Gupta, the chairperson, to give away the memento to Professor Tutun Mukherjee.
introduce the guests of honor? Professor Das. He will give a speech first? Okay. Okay, I welcome then our dear Dean, Professor Amitabh Das Gupta, to address the gathering.
It's not an address. The dignitaries, the dais, distinguished writers, my colleagues, respected colleagues, students and friends. I will not give any kind of address, not in a position to give also. But you know, it's a customary practice that the dean of the school has to say a few words, which I will be doing it. So the first thing is that, of course, on behalf of the school, I welcome all of you to this seminar, and I particularly welcome our distinguished participants who have come to this very important seminar. Now, this center, as I see, is very active in terms of organizing various seminars, discussions, workshops, including here the students. They organize, you know, national seminars, not in other departments of our school. You see, they do that, okay, but here the students, they do it. So that way this center, I must say, is very, very active. There is another very important feature of the center, or speciality of the center, is that it explores, you know, the cultural and creative activities of those who are at the margin. I mean, they had so many seminars on this. I mean, this, I think, is a very important kind of feature of these centers, that in their, not only in terms of seminars, but in terms of the research, both by the faculty and the students, this work on the writings, or what Professor Bheemaiah calls the counter writings, okay, that is very much studied here. It is explored. So in that way, subalternity as a whole, you see, it really gets its primary focus very much as a part of the research agenda of this center. I think it's a very, very promising feature. Now, now this seminar, for example, I mean, the scope is much broader, that apart from Dalits, there are other marginalized communities, and this seminar is very much on everyone. I mean, like women, of course, and then we have tribals, we have, you know, the religious minorities like the Muslims, gay community, etc. Now, you know, one should really, I mean, take these things as part of the same subaltern culture. So it is not that it only focuses on Dalit, but it really goes to all these suppressed communities, those who are historically suppressed. Now, I mean, historically, of course, I mean, I have nothing to say to you, because you know much better than this, that all of these communities are historically suppressed. They are suppressed by the dominant elite group. Now, this is where I think the whole notion of history that we have, it really it requires to rethink that what history is all about. Now, history is primarily viewed from the point of view of culture of dominance and subordination. Now, so since history is viewed primarily from the culture of dominance, therefore history is thought of in terms of unilinear, evolutionary kind of way. It really focused that there is, as if there is only one kind of history, because of the focus that history should be seen mostly from that unilinear point of view. Now, this entire perception is wrong, and it has been questioned very much by many of the recent writers, historians, and other social scientists, because they find that there are competing histories. These histories lie outside this history of the nation state and the state-centered narratives, what Partha Chatterjee calls fragments, nation and its fragments. Now, but I find here that this gives rise to what may be called, some kind of, this is a word that is used, incommensurability of paradigms. This is used by the famous philosopher of science, Kuhns, that we have competing paradigms, and there is no really kind of, and there is no dialogue between these two kind of paradigms. Now, the kind of paradigm, incommensurability of paradigm that we have here, I basically see that there are two paradigms of culture. One is the elite culture, and the other has become the subaltern culture. Now, if this is a kind of state of affairs, that within the same Indian culture we have these kind of two paradigms, incommensurable paradigms, then my worry is that can there be any negotiation between these two paradigms? Can there be a kind of dialogue between these two paradigms of culture? Now, this is where probably, we can have instead of accepting commensurability, we can think of a way out. That way out is needed because of the dialogue, because the elite community or the way the culture is projected, okay, there must be certain drastic changes, and that changes can come only when there is a dialogue between the two kind of paradigms. And this is where I feel that there are, probably we can think of the two important concepts. One is the idea of community, and the other is the idea of education. Now, the idea of community, by which I mean that the whole construct called nationalism is a kind of a borrowed, as you know, all of you know, is really a borrowed concept. It is a kind of thing which is really imposed on people. Basically, it is a concept developed within the Western political tradition. So, on the other hand, if you see that this whole idea of community is really the ideology of India. Okay. Now, this is where I think that instead of a state, really, we can think of the idea of society that is really the primary. In the case of nationalism, it is really the state that becomes really the primary, and it is the state narratives which really dominates the entire thing. But if we really take the idea of social, the ideology of the world community, then I think we can really have a kind of, we can free ourselves from that kind of state-sponsored or state-centered narrative, and it is the community that becomes the primary within the orbit of that ulilinear kind of history that we are seeing. Then the whole, because of this idea of community, then the concept that becomes really important is the idea of human solidarity. Now, in this context, in the medieval saints, in the write-up I have seen that this, the importance of the Bhakti movement that has been discussed, and some of the papers will be on Bhakti movements. Now, people like Nanak, Kabir, Chaitanya, they offer this idea of human solidarity, the idea of community, okay, very much. And interestingly, that these people like Nanak, Kabir, Chaitanya, they come from very different kind of religious background, social background, but their message actually is really harping on that, how to go to really the marginalized community, how really there can be a sense of community based on both elite and the non-elite. Now, so it is solidarity that becomes important, and in this context, there is a very significant work recently, I mean, recently means a few years ago, published by a well-known historian, Roger Threy, this book called and he has this idea of felt community. That's the title of his book. Many of you know very much about that. Now, it is this idea of community or the felt community that must be really the common perception and which should be the basis of really society. Okay, I mean, while talking about 1857 revolt, I mean, Roger Threy went into this whole configuration that developed between the Hindus and the Muslims, okay, and how the idea of community that really ultimately developed. So we can really think of in this line probably to, if we are really interested to have a dialogue between the two kind of paradigms. And second thing also it occurs to my mind, and this is where the importance of this sort of seminar comes, the importance of listening to counter writings, counter voice that comes, and that is this education. Now this is where it reminds me of Russia, for example. I mean, before revolution in Russia, there was a kind of ugly communal conflict between the Jews and the Christian. Now that, of course, there was a total kind of change in the social structure, but apart from that, you see, that entire ugly kind of communal feeling that was eradicated, and it is not eradicated, okay, only through the change of, I mean, social system. It was eradicated because there was a change in the mindset. And Tagore, for example, thinks that Tagore visited Russia, incidentally, immediately after the revolution, and he wrote a book called Russia Chithi, Letters from Russia. Okay, that's a very, very important kind of book. Now he's saying that, look, it is through education that there was a change in the mindset, and this is where he wrote that education has erased religious prejudices and caste differences in Russia. While referring to Russia, he's saying it has fostered real human relationship. Now, this education, obviously, is not just changing of certain kind of curriculum. That has to be done, of course. For example, history must be, I mean, rewritten. Okay, so this has to be done. But in this connection, I find the kind of seminar that this center is organizing time to time on these issues, I think is very important, because it really brings a new kind of awareness. It helps people, at least within this university community, to change their perception. They become aware of certain kinds of injustice, certain kinds of perspective that they get it. Okay, and this kind of seminars, I think this is actually the part of the same education which Tagore is talking about. That is the change of really the mindset. That is a new perception to be developed. Now, with these few words, okay, I really thank you, all of you, and I welcome all of you to this seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dasgupta. We are looking forward to this seminar where paradigms will become commensurable, perhaps, and that will open up the path for true dialogue between the two paradigms. Thank you very much, sir. And this is on the in the program. It says introducing the guests of honor by Mr. A.S. Dasan. Our guest of honor is Ms. Shivakami.
A very good morning to all of you. my role here is just limited to introduce the guest of honor. I would take the privilege of introducing Mrs. P. Sivakami now and later when M. Dasan comes into the dais. We are in the mood and mode of subaltern discourses. And here is a lady whose famous sentence has become a kind of manifesto for subaltern identity. And that is this: if you have a daughter, a girl child in the house, you have fire in the belly. That one sentence sums up Sivakami, the kind of writer she is, the kind of thinker she is, the kind of reformer she is, the kind of angst she possesses, and she reveals, connotes in the course of her writings. A prolific writer, poet, activist, graduated from Holy Cross College at Tiruchirappalli, post-graduation from Queen's Mary's College, Chennai. She has received quite a few prizes awarded, including Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Award for having stood first in Tamil at the state level, and gold medal too. She has served the government of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu for almost 28 years as IAS officer, and opted for voluntary retirement in 2008 for the sake of subalterns. As a writer, as a Tamil Dalit writer, she is not a Dalitist writer. She is a writer who makes a self-reflexive critique of her own status, the status of the subalterns. In the first Tamil Dalit novel, The Grip of Change, Palayana Kalidalum. And she has translated this Tamil novel into English by herself, and this novel has been prescribed in number of syllabi in undergraduate colleges and in PG departments in 1 or 2 universities too, including the Mysore University. The BBC Literary Review stated that this novel is one of the 5 favorite novels that are continue to be read in India even today. Well, she came out with the second novel, The Taming of Women. Penguin published a book, and she has also served as a Sahitya Academy advisor member. More than that, as an activist intellectual writer, she has also founded the Dalit land right movement in 2004 in order to ensure that lands are transferred to the landless poor. And she is also the founder of the South India Dalit Writers Artist Forum in 2002, and she has successfully organized seminars during her government service, including the one that she did, a conference in which 250,000 women participated at Tiruchirappalli in 2008. This is an extraordinary feat, achievement, for which we must salute Sivakami. She quit government job, initially joined the BSP as a political member, but she realized the limitations of that kind of association, and she began to form her own political entity called Samuha Samatwa Padai. She continues to write even today for the sake of the underprivileged causes. Now we shall have the privilege of listening to Mrs. Sivakami. Welcome.
Professor Tutun Mukherjee, Dr. J. Bheemaiah, Professor A.S. Dasan, and formerly Professor of English, Kannur University, Mr. M. Dasan, and the scholars who are present here. I really feel happy to be here for the third time, and I thank the Center for Comparative Literature for the opportunity given to me. And the first instance, I would like to congratulate the members of the Center for Comparative Literature, School of Humanities, University of Hyderabad, for having occasioned this national seminar cum workshop on counter-writing, Dalits and other subalterns. The choice of the theme, namely counter-writing, Dalits and other subalterns, is very significant, and in doing so, the organizing members of the conference uphold the claim that any academic research endeavor needs to look into the counter-writing as a viable response action by the Dalits and other subalterns. Over the last 6 decades, theoretical grounds in social science knowledge spectrum have increasingly moved away from its classical position towards critical social science, which argues for an alternate research positioning that represents the subalterns. This seminar, I personally feel, is a specific ethical option that the center has chosen, and I wish such endeavor is continued in future to express, cognize, and proact in favor of the underprivileged. Directionally speaking, there are 2 identifiable literatures that have been placed here for research and dialogue or discussions. One is the literature by the dominant, and the other is by the Dalit or subaltern. Dalit writing has been in this session has been termed as counter-writing. This term itself poses a lot of questions to me, probably to you also. Counter-writing denotes various items, especially the existence of another writing which is counter to it, and its main target is to counter that. So it also denotes the counter writing's main target is to counter that writing. At the same time, counter writing cannot be stated to have drawn inspiration from the other writings, because when you write counter writing, you cannot draw inspiration, because you are going to oppose every fundamentals of that literature or that base. Counter writing at the same time cannot become it denotes, I'm not saying, it denotes that it cannot become an independent entity, since its very purpose is to oppose something which is already written. Counter writing has yet another duty of engaging itself in counter writing. In counter writing, not only the subject matter changes, but also the perspective towards everything. Practically everything changes. So I would like to give examples to each of these statements that I put forward to you, that its main target is to counter. So if there is Ramayana, there will be Kimayana. So that's what it's counter, because there are number of Ramayanas written after Ramayana has been written, and I need not go into details about that. And for mainstream writing, because if it's not inspirational, so I would like to say that to you, because many writings, if you read, maybe you may not find out at the first instance, but when you read deeply and go deeply into it, probably you can find out either Bhagavad Gita, Periyar, or Karl Marx, any one of them will, or all of them would feed them the basic philosophy, aesthetics, etc. But counter-writing, the aesthetics comes from probably annihilation of caste. I'm not quoting the title of Ambedkar, or Ambedkarism. So the counter is not just to counter, it has something to say to the world. When I say this word, I just remember my experience way back 2001 when I was Secretary Adi Dravida and Tribal Welfare in the government of Tamil Nadu. I argued with Madam Jayalalitha the need to have a session, program, training program. It's called sensitization of officers towards SC/ST welfare. The program name is that. So with great difficulty, I argued and got some money for that. So when I went to invite one of my senior colleagues to attend the program, he said, yes, I would willingly come and I would speak, he said. Then I told him, sir, sorry, you cannot speak. You will only listen. I told him. He couldn't digest that. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that this is because he was under the impression there is nothing that he could learn from this kind of sessions. He has always something to give to the world. But through Dalit literature, the Dalits also have something to give to the world. So that's what I'm trying to impress upon. So let us understand counter literature has many things to give to the world, contribute to the society. And another example, how Dalit, because when I say Dalit literature, and I am very familiar with Tamil literature, therefore most of the examples I would like to quote from Tamil literature. You may not be aware, so I need to tell 2-3 lines of the story. You must have heard Indra Parthasarathy because his works are translated in English also. He is a very prolific writer and we value him more. But how things could be perceived differently by them is known by his work, Kurudi Punal. Kurudi Punal is the bloodshed, we can roughly if we translate, or stream of blood, whatever it is. So 44 Dalits have been burnt alive in Kizh Venmani in Thanjavur district of Tamil Nadu, the year 1950s. So because they demanded a half measure of paddy, more than what they were receiving. So Gopalakrishna Naidu, who was the employer, the landlord, he did not want to give it. So he locked them up all in one small 10 by 10 house. And because they rushed, because these people were chasing, Dalits were running for their life. They got into this room, so they thought they wouldn't be noticed. So they locked inside. When they came to know all these people were locked inside, he bolted them from outside and threw bombs, petrol bombs in all the 4 corners of the 10 square small house. So they were all burnt alive. So this was the theme of the story. So Indra Parthasarathy comes to the conclusion, because Gopalakrishna Naidu is sexually perverted, so he did this to these people. So how the Dalit problem and their struggle to get half measure from the landlords, because most of the Dalits, not most, 99% of them are landless in that area. So how the issue was subverted by Indra Parthasarathy, how it was given a treatment. So it is the dominant perspective of labor problem or labor struggle or agriculture coolies problem, etc. So it never was a caste problem according to him. And another example, I'm trying to prove that, see, the perspective differs. So when in the counter writing, it is not just to counter. the perspective, we have a potential idea how the world can be transformed, but there is a different view already put forward by the authors in Tamil literature. So how we are going to counter that? That is the preoccupation of Dalit literature. Another thing is, according to mainstream writers, if poverty and castes are the outcomes of their deeds in previous birth, and according to populist theories, the population is the main reason. And according to Marxists, it is only the class exploitation. You know, because poverty is treated by different philosophies in a different fashion. So Ambedkarists and Dalits and probably the counter-writing feel that basically the caste system, which is the culprit of all the evils which is prevalent in the society, poverty is mainly due to caste system. So I can elaborate upon it, but I don't find there is time. And also similarly, in most of the mainstream writings you find they talk about corruption, but never they go to the root cause of corruption. Even like movements, Anna Hazare and others, they took out corruption against corruption charges against government, etc. But according to Dalits and Ambedkarists, the main root cause for it's a because when others considered as a from the moral perspective, we consider it as a problem of not sharing the resources, and corruption is embedded in the caste system itself. When the very root is very corrupt, we cannot superficially treat the problem. Another strong perspective of the mainstream thinkers is that Dalit is not a homogeneous identity. Of course, Dalit is not a homogeneous identity, it is plural. There are different communities which are scheduled and they are put together and they are called Dalit. But this doesn't happen with the only Dalit communities. It happens with backward classes also. Backward classes, different communities, more than, because in Tamil Nadu maybe 62 communities are there on the scheduled caste list. But in backward class list, probably more than 1,500. Different castes are grouped as backward classes. And if we are going to argue disunity within the Dalit communities, it is there in the BC communities as well. And if you are going to argue for unity between, there is unity between Dalit communities, we are going to say the same thing to backward class also. And within the Dalit, one is not expecting any fissures or divergence, basically because they are poor and they have to unite together and to fight for their cause. So why are they getting separated? That may be the reason behind such research or maybe such statements. But one tries to forget that even among Brahmins there are called Soundi Brahmins. Soundi Brahmins are connected with the rites to the dead, and the high caste Brahmins are connected to the puja of the deities, etc. So they don't mingle with each other, they don't get married. So even among the high caste Brahmins there are Saivites and Vaishnavites. We call it Vadakalai and Tenkalai. There has been a continuous war between them for placing that their mark, religious mark, either Vibhuti Pattai or Namam. We call it the trimark, because Vaishnavas use this, both are using trimark, one is vertical, one is horizontal. So to draw on the back of the elephant, so there was a great war going on. They went to the court and they fought. So the perception of the mainstream thinkers is that they are not united, they are illiterate, and they have no soul, and they are not tied to any particular faith. So these are the misnomers that exist among the mainstream writers, and they get reflected in their writings. So the counter writings work is manifold. So whatever ideas they have to dispute and prove it and educate them, or make them clear, etc. But I find the chair was talking about dialogue between these two, and this kind of sessions are going to kind of give a space for such dialogues. True, academic circles, it does happen, but outside this academic circle, and here in the political circle, I would like to mention that when I was participating in one of the literary sessions space, everything is denoted by this word neither. So they have a literary forum called Neithal. They call me to talk to the few writers, Fisher, belonging to Fisher folks. So when I was introduced by Veda Sakayam, professor, so he said, here is a lady who had written a novel in 1980s, and 2000 we see a formidable political party coming up in Tamil Nadu, bargaining for their rights, or alliance with major political parties. So he equated Dalit literature straight away with politics. So I really see, because the mainstream writers, there is politics in every writing, as you all know, but they are not directly linked to politics probably. But maybe they are agents of such philosophy or agents of such political parties. You can put them in their types. What I'm trying to say is that Dalit literature probably is more connected to Dalit politics, and this is explicitly written in Dalit literature, counter writing, because when they deny politics and they talk about the mingling of souls and search for something in life, the purpose of life, all that, indirectly they are talking about some kind of politics. So which I think the counter writing has to really, of course, they will also write about their faith and what their life they lead. At the same time, they have to counter such efforts put forward by the mainstream writing. Now, in sum and substance, so I have just discussed what is main writing and counter writing, or dominant writing or Dalit writings, and through this I think we can come to some kind of a conclusion. Their approach and what is the remedy they offer, etc. According to mainstream thinkers or writers, through their literature I'm talking, emancipation lies within the realms of exploiters, and only change of heart of the exploiters, and also through slow transformation, Dalits can be emancipated. So this is the overall theory they are trying to project. So would this be accepted by the counter literature? Would they expect this to be accepted? So I really doubt. And this I think I can quote a number of works. Most of the works, in Tamil literature, they propound this theory, because by standing against violence. So because if maybe the Dalits have not recourse to violence so far, I've never heard of. It's only the dominant class commit atrocities against them. Sometimes they do retaliate, but it's not in a large scale. But so by something talking about against violence, they are trying to propound a theory on slow transformation. So now, what should Dalits do? They should propagate violence. But here I'm again forced to recall the story by Premchand. Must have read it Kafan in Hindi, and this is the, I think, sari or cloth on the dead body they cover it with. So in Tamil we call it Kodi Tuni. So even to buy that, there are two members of the Arudadiyar communities, that is cobbler communities. They couldn't find money. So with that, I think the story goes into details about how the daughter-in-law of the house was in labor pain inside the house. Both father and son, they are sitting outside peeling potatoes that also stolen from the neighborhood field, and they were smoking and eating it, and the father was very reluctant to go in. Sorry, the son was very reluctant to go in and see how the lady is suffering, and to help her, because by the time the father would finish off all the potatoes, and the father is very reluctant to go inside. The true reason, according to the writer, that is Premchand, that the son would finish off all the potatoes. So now, as a result, the lady dies, and they go to beg to the good Samaritans of the village some money, and with that money they don't spend on her to bury the body. They go straight away without talking to each other, father and son, go to the toddy shop and they drink to the brim and they fall flat, and they see stars upstairs. So now I would like to throw questions to Premchand, being a writer. How did he hear about this incident? How, in which form? Probably because he's a Brahmin caste or upper caste man, whatever it is. So there is always separate dwelling for the Arundadiyar communities or Dalits, far away from the main village. All that he must have heard is there was a lady, she's dead and no one to bury her, and the father and son is found in the ark shop. So with that, he must have concocted the story, probably. And also he must have heard stories that usually the poor and people who have nothing to eat, they go and steal these potatoes. So that also he's trying to put it on their heads, okay, that people have stolen. He has not seen it. If he has seen it, but red-handed, or at least then he didn't see them smoking that potatoes in front of the house and eating it. And he also didn't have any clue what the father thought, for the son thought. But everything he imposes on them. Probably he must have got it, in Muslim households, 4 or 5 people sitting